Thank you, Professor Lowe. First of all, I would like to mention that I have to keep my video off because I'm connecting from a very uh, difficult geography where I might not have internet for a long time. Before I start my presentation, I would like to say today's presentation is a mixture of archival and ethnographic data that builds on my work on Sundarbans Delta and with the community residing there, especially the tiger attack widows and tiger attack survivors since early 2016 while I pursued MPhil at McGill University. The first section I have titled as the invisible margins of the Indian Ocean worlds is the beautiful forest. Sundarbans is the world's only mangrove tiger land that straddles between India and Bangladesh. The mangrove ecosystem, unique to South Asia, is located in the lower deltaic Bengal. The Sundarbans is formed by the rivers Brahmaputra, Ganga, and Meghna, which is called the Brahmaputra Ganga Meghna BGM Delta. It expands across the southernmost parts of West Bengal, India to Baleshwar River in Khulna division, Bangladesh. Though the Sundarbans is synonymous to the Royal Bengal tigers, the mangroves and the rivers, different aspects of the three elements have different charm for an effect on the deltaic and the urban habitats. The tiger and the dense forest with its crocodile-invested river systems are a source of fear for the deltaic residents, whereas the same components act as attractions for the urban tourist from the metropole of Kolkata, located just about 90 kilometers away from the Sundarbans. The mangroves, tigers, and rivers are such an integral feature of Sundarbans that they inspired the naming of the region even. Here I use two quotes. Various derivations have been suggested for the word Sundarban, but only two appear probable. One is Sundari, the Sundari tree mangrove, and Ban, forest, the whole word meaning the Sundari forest, and the other, Samudra, though its corrupted and vulgar form, Samudar, the sea, and Ban forest, the whole meaning the forest near the sea. There are two arguments in favor of the former derivation. First, that the Sundari tree is the commonest tree there are, and secondly, that the word sometimes locally pronounced the Sundarban. There is one argument in favor of the second derivation, the word Samudravan. Occurs in Sanskrit, authors as meaning large forest tracts near the sea. Another view is that the Sundarbans takes the name from the Hindu words meaning the beautiful forest. The second quote says, the name Sundarban had also been derived from that of Sundri, with which the territory abounds, and with more learned ingenuity from two Sanskrit words, Sundar, beautiful, and Burn, woods or jungle. But we adhere to our own etymology rather because the place was probably known and named before its growth of woods, and when it's in its primitive state, the effects of the tides in forming sandbanks at the several mouths of the Ganges might have been observed, as is reasonable to suppose from its being always included under the local description of Bhatti, with all the neighboring lowlands overflowed by the tides. Also because however beautiful these woods might now appear to an ingenious poetical fancy, as they were rarely traversed, being for the most part an impenetrable thicket, or if sometimes partially explored in pilgrims of cold and timid Brahmins. It must be under sentiment of terror in meeting beasts of prey, which would suggest a different epithet to beautiful. Geographical and ecological evidence, especially surveys for maps, indicate the retreat of the Sundarbans boundary from Hooghly River in now Kolkata, India during the 1840s to the coastline of the Bidadhuri River in the present times. The decrease in foliage cover can be attributed to the need to expand cultivation in the area since the Mughal age, as the forest surrounding the delta was thought to be potentially rich in alluvial soil required for good agriculture. Human settlement and deforestation escalated, resulting in ever-increasing human, animal, and human nature conflict in the Sundarbans. However, because the Bay of Bengal records a lack of any major territorial conflicts or claims, it has been less studied in relation to the Indian Ocean worlds and Sundarbans. Despite being located in northern Indian Ocean and connected to the same tree networks of rivers, has since then been rarely investigated within the corpus of Indian Ocean studies. Another major reason for the academic invisibility can be attributed to the dissection of the river networks of the BGM Delta due to the 1947 partition, which geopolitically dissociated the river systems from the Indian Ocean but could not do so ecologically. There has been a sudden visibility in urban human consciousness where we come to debate the resilience of the area. Sundarbans was in news very recently owing to its devastation by the super cyclone Amphan in 2020. The onslaught by supercyclone Antoine on 20 May 2020 has catalyzed heart-wrenching thoughts of finding this ecological heritage only in the pages of history in the near future. The cyclone had paralyzed comfortable lives of the city dwellers in Kolkata for weeks, and that too so immensely that for the first time, power cuts, the disappearance of phone networks, no internet connectivity, drinking water deficiency, waterlogging, uprooted trees, blocked roads, disconnected cable connections. Amphan birthed in the Bay of Bengal is the worst cyclonic storm to hit the region in 187 years. Since 1833, at a wind speed of 180 km per hour to 133 km after the landfall. And until Amphan, Kolkata had been saved of any cyclonic consequences, while the Sundarbans coastline suffered silently in the invisible margins. The following day did not bring any relief, rather added to the misery of the impoverished. The cyclone had broken river embankments, allowing the sweet and salt water to mix. Fish bidding for survival had jumped out of the ponds to escape from death by exosmosis, ascribable to the intrusion of saline water. The huts were pasted to the ground, cattle were dead. Acres of agriculture were wasted, tube wells were broken, and mangrove covers were destroyed. The islanders are resilient. Hence, they were more than adamant to recommence disaster management tasks and revive their local economy, irrespective of the restrictions in place due to Corona. They made groups to rebuild their houses. They carried the falling trees on their shoulders to clear the road so that NGO contributions could move in. They started to live in boats on the heightened waters or at the cyclone centers until they rebuilt the broken embankments and desalinated the cultivable lands and ponds. This was only possible through group work and community involvement. Collective action can bring a collective solution for a collective problem, was their ideology. Their philosophy is centered on existence fueled by food, without which they would assuredly die before the disease corona would inflict life threat on them. The catastrophe revived an age-old debate on the consequences of the growing human populace in the mangroves. Historically, in search of a livelihood, the deltaic inhabitants have been penetrating deeper into the forest, thereby affecting the foliage and adding to the impoverishment of the defensive potential of the mangroves against ravaging storms. In such a context, there has been a growing clamor in the metropole advocating a relocation of the inhabitants as the best method to save Kolkata's first line of climatic defense. History, on the other hand, cautions against such statist evacuation. Government-led evictions might lead to another Morichapi-like incident, which occurred in 1979, where Hindu Dalit refugees who refused to leave the Sundarbans were fired upon, all in the name of the forest laws and conservation of the tiger population. Also, such movements of the human populace from the area will not erase the societal marginalization that they already face by means of caste discrimination and poverty in the Sundarbans. Rather, such migrations to the city will increase their marginalization by many folds by forcing the people to lose their means and skills of livelihood once they shift from the riverine geographies. And this I take from the conversations between Amitav Ghosh and from the articles by Meghna Mehta and Professor Debjani Bhattacharya. Hence, the contemporary, pardon me, please. Hence, the contemporary bureaucratic attempt to equate resilience to mobility migration is short-sighted and can be better understood by looking into the happenings of the Morichapi massacre from 1979. A huge section of Hindu Dalit refugees migrated to the Indian side from the then East Pakistan, now Bangladesh, during the upheavals of the language movement of 1952 and the 1971 Liberation War of Bangladesh. The families were sheltered in the Dandakaranya camp situated in the arid locales of Chhattisgarh. The refugees revolted and pleaded for rehabilitation in riverine roques that would allow them to skillfully fetch a living. The change in environment took away their means to garner resources of livelihood. The then opposition party of West Bengal, the CPIM, promised to rehabilitate these refugees in the riverscapes of the Sundarbans. This was told in 1975, once they would come to power. But on gaining power in 1977, the CPIM refused to rehabilitate the refugees in the Sundarbans, citing the prohibition on deforestation under the forest laws active in the region. Nevertheless, many refugees traveled to the Morichapi island of Sundarbans, India, and started to build huts there after having cleared a part of the forest covering. In a bid to remove the refugees out of force from the island, the then Chief Minister of West Bengal, Jyoti Basu, forcefully evacuated the people, burned them alive, ceased delivery of food and water to these islands by submerging their eggs containing boats. tear gassed them, and fed their half-burned bodies to the tigers in the tiger reserve of Sundarbans. This occurred from 26 January 1979 to 17 May uh, 17 May 1979. The entire incident was carried out by censoring the media from recording the events on ground. Contrary to recent advancements, the word resilience is derived from the Latin resiliere, which means to spring back, and was first used during 1970s or 80s in the field of physical sciences to explain the behavior of the spring, which even after pressure would jump back flexibly to its previous form. In 1980s, the word resilience came to be widely used in the context of being able to recover from a hazardous incident. Nonetheless, for the case studies under analysis in this paper, the definitions of community resilience respects a sustainable network of physical systems and human community capable of managing extreme events during disaster. Both must be able to survive and function under extreme stress, aptly reflective of a society's ability to cope and to continue to cope in the future. I come to three case studies here, and I title them A Different Success Story of Resilience in Anthropocene, Catharsis in Lived Experiences of Human Perseverance. Their stories of bouncing back, even at the face of immense distress, of not losing hope, of deciding to fight and persevere, count as success stories of resilience in Sundarbans of the Anthropocene. The ability to voice fearlessly their wants, their problems, their anger, their frustrations, their futures, their plans, act as a mode of catharsis, the process of releasing and finding relief from the strong repressed emotions. The first is called Cyclones and Embarkment. Two devastating cyclones ravaged the Sundarbans for 2 consecutive years, Amphan in May 2020 and Yash in May 2021. The concept of Anthropocene is built on two major words, anthropos meaning man and scene meaning epoch. Hence, Anthropocene comes to mean the era in which human activities dominantly influence climate and environmental changes. In the backdrop of which the picture on the screen uh, of the deltaic people of Cape Lot and Sundarbans using their bodies as first line of defense to protect the embankment so that saline water does not sweep into the freshwater spaces again and ruin the fish and agriculture becomes important, as it highlights to how people who had least contribution to climate change now stands at the front line of facing its immediate consequences. Pictorially, the man or anthropos evidently lives in the scene or era created by them. However, agriculture in Sundarbans is very difficult due to the presence of salinized soil and frequent lack of hybrid salt-resistant seeds for agriculture. The deltaic community archives their success stories of resilience by taking it on their shoulders to rebuild or protect their environment. The imperative part of surviving in Sundarbans is achieved by maintaining the embankments that will protect the low-lying agricultural land from the ingression of salt waters from the river. The riverine geography of Sundarbans is affected by the mobile rivers, who are known to gnaw at the embankments, making them porous. Thus, the prospect of concrete embankments can most often prove fatal here, but continuous reconstruction and maintenance of the mud embankments can help save the situation. The residing community persevere under such violent climate and continue to rebuild for survival once the embankments are at the threat of being washed away. In an interview with Mr. Rai, I have changed his name, in Khali, Sundarbon, who is a farmer by profession, told me, in Amphan Super Cyclone 2020, we have faced immense loss, destruction, and loss again. The quantity is lots as government took no steps. We sowed seeds in the field once, but those did not thrive to yield the paddy crop. After the Bengali month of Bhadro, that is August to September in 2020, went by, then we could cultivate some paddy. We toiled and worked hard to cultivate our lands. We took financial loans, but then because of the rains, the harvested crops got ruined again. In this condition, to help us, government took no steps. Now, what steps government intends to take, we do not know. In the rain, everything was engulfed in water. The water levels were above the roads. Hence, again the crops got ruined. Then again, in the end of Bengali month Bhadra of the next year, August, September 2021, we sowed seeds again, hoping to have a harvest. We kept irrigating. Harvesting took till Ashwin, that is September to October 2021. Then again, there was flooding. After the flooding, then again our crops got ruined. Everything was broken. Many embankments were broken. In many places, we went to reconstruct the embankments. Till now, government has taken no steps. Our roads and lanes are still broken. If they don't fix this, in the future, we will have to fall in more troubles. Our livelihood depends on agriculture. When our crop and land got ruined, we were forced to go back to the forest to catch fish and crabs. Some way or the other, I'm so sorry. I'll just check the chat if there is. Yeah, I'll finish it in 5 minutes, sure. Um, we were forced to go to the forest to catch fish and crabs. Some way or the other, we feed our families. Now there is trouble waiting for us in the forests. That is fear. The tiger department has the core area marked off there. If we enter that, they chase us. Now we, to save our lives, we go into hiding. We hide, then tigers attack us. This is how we are being attacked. uh, I'll cut short the interview there. And the next section is tiger attack, climate crisis, and religion. Most people do not own cultivable land in Sundarbans, and hence they go to the forest to earn a living by garnering wax, honey, fruit, crabs, and fish. Those that have land for agriculture complained about ruined harvest owing to saltwater invasion into the cultivable lands after the annual floods or the frequent climatic catastrophe. Thus, the farmer community is also forced to visit the forest to accumulate forest products. Uh, the Sundarbans forest is fragmented. The tigers do not only come to the forest in the village in the winter, they also often lose their way in the fragmented forest setting and wander into human settlements. These incidents increase during the monsoon when the swollen rivers on breaking high embankments make the low-lying villages and the forests the same. It becomes easier for the tiger to swim into the village lands in search of food. Humans are easy, effortless prey. Feeding on porcupines is dangerous given their quills, and hunting down spotted deers is energy consuming. Also, the increase in salinity of the water during cyclones and floods make the tigers irritable, thereby increasing their inclination for human attacks. In the winters, it is a common phenomenon that the tigress carries their cubs to safety, that is away from the tiger, to help the newborn cubs survive till an age when they can fight back the male big cats and claim their own territories. Before the cubs attain maturity, there is fear of their death by tiger attacks. This is common feline nature. So very often the tigress carries their cubs to the villages during winters. This again creates potential for human-tiger conflict. Amongst all, in our patriarchal society, the tiger widows, called the Bag Vidhobas, the women who have lost their husband to tiger attacks, face the brunt of such loss. They're ostracized and kept at the margins of the Sundarbans community. They're thought to be ill omens. As per the interpretational dictates of the mistress of the forest, who is called Ma Bono Bibi, and are sometimes slurred as Shami Khejo, as husband eaters. The last section, which I'll just take 2 minutes to complete, is called Resilience in the Absence of the Forest Rights Act. However, the large portion of the tiger attack deaths are unreported in the absence of the Forest Rights Act, which was implemented in 2006, promised to restore the right of the forest produce to the forest communities. It meant that Sundarbans communities would not need costly permits to enter the forest. Accordingly, to the FRA 2006, after the implementation of the act in the area, the community would become the legal visitors and guardians of the forest and could claim compensations for animal attack deaths of people who entered the forest without permits. But it never was implemented in the Sundarbans, citing it to be an ecologically fragile zone. The inability to purchase the costly permits to enter the forest, most Sundarban islanders penetrate the forest illegally in hope of garnering forest produce for survival. To avoid being marked and harassed by the forest guards, the families of the victims who enter the forest illegally refrain from reporting the mishap. Tiger attack deaths resulting after illegal entry into the forest disqualifies the family of the deceased from availing financial compensation from the forest department. Consequently, the widow faces the immediate blow. The lack of viable alternatives to start anew forces the widow to migrate to the city of Kolkata to take up viable options of income, such as construction labor, housemaid job, sex worker. Amongst all, sex work is the easiest. In 2009, after the devastation of Cyclone Ayla, the red light area of Kolkata recorded a 20 to 25% increase in the number of sex workers from the Delta. The survey I conducted in the red light area of the Kolkata city by random sampling of women who came into sex work out of will from the Sundarbans, I was told that they can send back some money back to their home to support their families and even go back to their houses under the impression that they have reputable jobs in the domestic labor sector in Kolkata. One of the tiger survivors, Mr. Mondo, who was attacked in the last week of December 2001, said me, my injury is healing. I have not healed yet. There is a deep hole from the tiger's teeth. It is not yet an old wound. I do this because of poverty. There are many people like us, lakhs and lakhs. Tiger attack happens, but lakhs and lakhs still must go to the forest. Everyone does this because of poverty. No one goes to this forest to have fun. I'm not afraid. I'm unsure. To forge a living for my family, I will go back to the forest if there is a need. I'm unsure. I can even go back to the same place where I was attacked. Thank you.